Good morning, everybody. Unfortunately, Matthew is not well today. So I am actually taking responsibility of recording. He's going to post up. And what I wanted to talk about today is ability enhancement and ability changes and ability loss when you have someone in your world who's living with Lewy body. And Lewy body is one of those initially thought to be very rare conditions that's actually a very common type of dementia, or an adjunct, like a sidebar to someone else's primary dementia. And so Lewy body is thought to be caused by synuclein protein, alpha synuclein protein malformations, primarily occurring both in the cortex, the thinking, the neocortex part of the brain, and deep inside the primitive brain. So, what that means is there are symptoms that are atypical for other dementias that are primary for Lewy body. And one of them is visual disturbances, thinking changes, differences. So, what would be called delusional thinking, and particularly often a sense of being targeted, paranoid, fearful of what might happen. Who's coming after. Things get interpreted in a very scary way. So it's sort of like the reticular activating system, which is your attention system, is on hyper alert for threat. And it starts to interpret things as threatening words, interactions, but most particularly visual data. So it starts to take in visual data and reform it in such a way, we think, as to produce something that is scary, frightening, concerning. So I wanted to take an example. A friend of mine, Lauren, and we've worked together for years and years. Turns out when I went back, wow, I mean, we're talking about 2014, 2013, 2012. We've been together for a while, and she's had progression in her Lewy body. But I want to go back to early. And Lauren had been a card maker. She did lots of really complicated, very complex 3D imagery from multimedia to produce cards or visuals or posters. And what she was finding is she's having trouble using her hands to get things to happen. So she started using an app of some sort that allowed her to do art to show on screen on her tablet what she was seeing. So I'm going to share with you some of those images that she shared early on, because one of the reasons we got together is she was scared about some of the things that were happening and she was seeing. And yet, because of her background as a psychiatric nurse, she knew she had to be thoughtful and careful about who she shared that with, or she could be admitted, as people would say, um, unwillingly into a psychiatric controlled setting with medications, because it would seem as though she might be developing schizophrenia because she had young onset. So, what I'm going to show you are some of the visual images that she sent to me to explain why she was concerned or what was happening. So, this is the very first one that she was able to put together. And so, what Lauren would see was a combination of bats and flying monkeys, like from the Wizard of Oz. So, scary images, scary things coming in, and they would come and they would be present. Now, as we learn more and more about Lewy body, this is that shadow vision where you take shadows and they move and they're not stable and things like that. And so your brain starts to create the imagery around it to explain it. So this is what, and the bats had sharp teeth, and the flying monkeys had sharp teeth, sort of like, with the Wizard of Oz, silent, no sound. But they were at night, and in the evening they would come and they would hang near the ceilings and they would be present. So that's an example. That's one of the early examples. And again, using media that she could find online to actually produce this. And then here's an example of a more organized picture of one of these guys. So here is this one. And this is one of the flying monkeys. And their eyes were big, their ears were big, they had claws. So this is when she would try to put onto an image, and this one was actually might have been on paper, but she might have used the stylus to do it. I'm not sure now, and she wouldn't be able to tell me to remember for sure how she created it. That's a little fuzzy, but here's an example of a specific. But at the same time, she was also experiencing a very different phenomena of children, a child. So this child, she named her Star. She was silent. She would be around. She would follow Lauren. She would, Lauren, when she'd walk her dog, she would, Frosty, she would see her out and about, and she was always just in this shirt. So I'm going to show you what she looked like. So this was Star, and called Star because of Star on her shirt, because the little girl never talked. So here we have Star with these beautiful blonde hair, red shirt with blue star, green eyes, always sort of there, but silent. And Lauren would ask her, how could she help? And so these images of this poor little girl who needed help, and we could figure out maybe how that might be Lauren needing help and seeking assistance, though Lauren has red hair. It's a little bit different, but there could be some connection. There often is with Lewy body in my experience. And then the monster and the monsters that would be around. So those are some examples. Now, as things went on, there were additional. And so Lauren would find ways to share what she was seeing and be able to hold on to it in her art. Not everybody can do that, but because maybe of her initial talent and areas of expertise. So by summer, those were 2014, and by summer, and that was spring. By 2014, in the summer, this is the image of the flying monkeys and the bats, and they sort of morph a little bit, but boy, look at the color. I mean, this is not just shadows. These become live things that are flying around for her, and really scary and frightening. And so trying to figure out ways to get this under control and to get this to a place where she felt safer. And it turned out for Lauren, doing a transition from living alone in Pennsylvania to moving back to California, and actually being able to move into the house that she and her husband, who teaches in California, and Lauren was working in psychiatric setting in Pennsylvania, small town there, getting them back into one unit and getting them back into an environment that felt safer to her was a way to get rid of these guys for a while. Now, it wasn't like they went away forever, but there was a less of an incident. So time goes by a little bit for a while, and things during that period of these transitions was really hard on Lauren's brain. And so Lauren was able to come up with a way of describing what was happening to her brain. And she created a visual for this one. And she actually constructed this one. This is actually a painting that she did. So, and it was with, I think, colored pencils, now that I'm remembering. Here we go. And she called it Lava Brain, because as she would try to use her brain, it just felt like it would explode with lava. And there were different areas that were working fine, and then there were these lava explosions, and it was very distressing because she was super aware of that, and it would make it almost impossible to try to do things when that would happen. And then at other times she would be okay. At the same time, on her body, she would have the feeling of snakes being under her skin. So a lot of negative imagery of my brain is on fire, some people might say, but for her it was lava. It was flowing and the snakes were moving. And so those kind of things were incredibly distressing. But again, trying to find a way to manage that, combining working with someone who's knowledgeable and skillful and willing to talk through and work through this stuff, but also then creating an environment and a space where things were more in a controlled mechanism of trying to figure out what works, what doesn't, And then the final piece is trying to find, are there any medications that are helpful versus problematic? And to be honest, that took quite a bit of work to get to a space. And part of the problem was she also had some other health conditions that were making it more challenging, lupus and some old pain phenomena from major abdominal surgeries when she was younger, and scarring and problems. So these art pieces, though, I wanted people to realize, wow, I mean, that's an ability state. For all the changes, for all the frustrations in the world of living in dementia, there's also this ability to communicate in a very different way. And when we can figure out the communication, it can make a huge difference. And art's not everybody's things. It might be music, it might be just words, it might be something else. And then Lauren had one final thing that she wanted to make sure was part of this, and it came from someone else. It wasn't hers, but she found it and really wanted to share it. And it is, I'm going to bring it up. It's a piece, and it came from oops, I'm making marks. That's not my intent. Oh dear, let me stop. I don't want to do brushes. I want to go back, go back, go back. Here is what I wanted to do. I wanted to make sure you saw all the words. Um, and I'll give you the quote and then we'll do the source. Please promise me, if and when the day comes that I may forget who you are, please promise that you won't forget that I am still me. And for us at Positive Approach, and Snow Approach Foundation, that's what we work hard to do. Don't forget, I'm still me. I'm different, but I'm still me. And that was Mara Batonis. And When Caring Takes Courage. That's her book. So, for those of you out there who are living in the world of dementia, on one side of the divide or the other, or somewhere in the middle, this morning was an opportunity to look at gifts that people have and not to forget the gifts when we're in the middle of trying to cope with a lot of the challenges. All right, everybody. Hope it gave you something to look at, explore, think about, if nothing else. And if you're living with Lewy body, one way or the other, and you have something to add to the conversation or a question, please join in. We're here to support, we're here to resolve, we're here to be curious. Till next time, take care of yourselves, take care with your care. Bye, y'all.